What is up, you guys? The Teller checking in for UFC 275. We got a giant fight card lined up here to break down two of my favorite women's mixed martial artists fighting on the card. Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Valentina Shevchenko. We got the big light heavyweight matchup. Jiří Procházka taking on the vampire and Glover Teixeira. The guy just doesn't age. He only gets better and better as he continues to fight. Now, if all went well, this video here is featured to you guys as a premiere video. At the time I'm recording this, I was planning on setting this for 9 p.m. Eastern. Give me some feedback in the comment section if this is a good time moving forward. I want to do a video premiere with these videos so you guys are able to engage and communicate with each other as the video premieres for the first time. So let me know what you guys think about that. We're going to have timestamps as usual. If you guys are watching this after the fact, we'll have timestamps for you guys to jump back to any specific fights you want to hear more about. We're going to do a quick recap of UFC Vegas 56, another profitable card, another clean sweep. That's 2 fight cards in a row now that we've had clean sweeps on. Major units coming in. All right, guys. So if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you guys joining us. We got a great episode lined up for you guys. Let's get to it.
The Teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The Teller.
And just like that, we have another giant fight card to discuss. UFC 275. It's taking place in Singapore. You guys know I am a giant fan of the UFC making the worldwide travel with these events. So it's exciting to see. Of course, when you have a fighter like Weili Zhang on the fight card, you're going to notice there's a lot of other Asian fighters, a lot of other Chinese fighters that she brings along with her. This is something we've seen the UFC do for a long period in time. If they go to a certain region, if you see a UK card, obviously you're going to see a lot of English fighters, a lot of Irish fighters, that type of stuff. And you'll notice that with this fight card as well. We'll brush upon the fight card really quickly. Of course, the big time main event. I'm very excited to see how this fight's going to take place. I'll give you guys my thoughts on it in a little bit. The 2 fighters that I was talking about earlier that are 2 of my favorites in the game, Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Valentina Shevchenko. Always a treat to watch these women perform. And you're going to see a little bit of a drop off in the fight card as it moves down, but a lot of sleeper fights in my opinion. Della, Maddalena. This guy's been bringing the action. Brendan Allen, I'm a fan of him as well. I think he has some solid abilities. Choi, he's a fighter that brings it. Andre Fialho just getting thrown right back in there and getting bigger and bigger names now. Jake Matthews, a fighter who was one of the rare fighters whose mother actually was, who had the pleasure to give birth in the octagon. So Jake Matthews, again, fighting inside the octagon, man. This kid has grown up in the octagon, and he has a tough task ahead of him. And Andre Fialho, who's really, really rolling hot into this fight card. And then you got, the first 2 fights. We're gonna start the card off with talking about them, but not the most exciting fights, but we'll get to those. You guys know how we do things here. If you're new to the channel, what we always do is we recap the previous fight card that was prior to the card that we're talking about today. We just got to talk about the bets that we targeted, where we went wrong, where we went right, how we did overall. And that's what we will be doing here in a second. We'll be talking about UFC Vegas 56. I had another clean sweep. I went 2 for 2. That's now 2 fight cards in a row, like I said, that I hit clean sweeps on. We're now 5 of 5 in our last 5 official plays. And, that's what we're going to do now. We're going to move over to UFC Vegas 56. We'll make it quick, and then we'll jump into the future action. So in the first fight of UFC Vegas 56, we had Erin Blanchfield taking on JJ Aldrich. You guys know my thoughts going into this fight was that the betting line was very steep on Erin Blanchfield. I did have her to win this fight. But I thought the line was somewhat ridiculous, especially when there was a clear avenue for her opposition to defeat her. That being that JJ Aldrich was the better striker going into this fight. And obviously I think that she proved that. At one point in time, JJ was the betting favorite on the live line. I think it was at the end of the second round or towards the end of the second round. But she had some success in the first round. Erin Blanchfield just nonstop action though, constantly coming forward, pressuring JJ, and eventually she broke her. She got that standing guillotine choke. Erin Blanchfield is a fighter that I'm very high on. I'm excited to see her perform in her next fight. She needs to work on some things, though. I want to see her sharpen up a couple different things as far as her making her way towards the tippy top of the division there. Renat Fakhretdinov takes out Andreas Michailidis. You guys know, breaking down tape on Renat, I was not that impressed from what I saw. And if I'm being honest, I really wasn't that impressed with his victory over my boy Andreas. Obviously, I got a lot of love for Andreas, but I'm not extremely high on his abilities as far as fighting in this division in the UFC. I know he was coming down in weight as well, but Renat, in my opinion, when he faces off against an opponent that knows how to stuff the takedown, I think that they're going to give him a lot of problems on the feet. I'm really not sold on his striking, and just be careful taking him in the future when there's a high line next to his name. I understand it. He has the OV at the end of his last name. He's a Russian fighter coming in with a very solid record. Just understand that it's a little bit padded and that his striking is really not all that. Jeff Molina gets the split decision victory over Zhalgas Zamagulov. Who did you guys have winning this fight? I heard a lot of people saying that Zhalgas deserved to get the nod here. In my opinion, I thought it was very close, but I thought that Jeff did enough to get the fight based on the fact that he was having a lot of success stuffing those takedowns, working his back against the cage, using the wizard there, dropping elbows, and really just being active with his strikes. And then out in distance, I thought that he was landing the more clean shots, even though Zhalgas was throwing some powerful shots out there as well. I thought that Jeff deserved to win the fight, and this was a big weekend for Jeff Molina. Jeff Molina being very vocal in his press conference, showing that he's a very articulate guy. Whether you agree or disagree with what he's saying, one thing's for sure is that he knows how to articulate himself, and I think that if he continues to win fights, he could be a guy that starts to make a name for himself in the division. He's very young. He's learning from James Krause, a legend in the game at this point, really, if you take into consideration the coaching job and the fighting abilities that James Krause possesses. He's kind of a legend to a degree. But Jeff Molina has a lot of time to work on his craft and turn into something nice. Tony Gravely defeats Johnny Munoz Jr. This was a big regret for me here. I was very close to pulling the trigger and making this an official bet, an official play. Of course, you guys know I bet on every single fight on these fight cards, whether it's a little or whatnot. But as far as my official plays, when I'm dropping big time money, I was close to giving this play out and throwing some big money on Gravely, but I did hesitate. I should have known that Gravely was going to have the edge. The long-time American top team product, the lifelong Taekwondo wrestler, lifetime well-rounded mixed martial artist. This is a fighter that's been engaged in the MMA game for a long time. And when I say MMA, I'm not even talking about just training MMA, but really all different types of disciplines in their own right extensively. Tony Gravely is a solid fighter. He possesses big power. And we'll see where he goes next. Benoit Saint Denis takes out Nicholas Stoles. This was my first official play of the card. I felt very, very confident about this play. I'll tell you guys that right now. For those of you guys that didn't target this, especially if you guys watch my show, I'm a little disappointed in you guys. I kind of showed my hand that I was very, very confident in Benoit Saint Denis getting the job done here. It was a 4.5 unit play. Grabbed it nice and early at minus 160. A lot of action came in throughout the week. Benoit Saint Denis showed a lot to me in his UFC debut, taking on Zaleski dos Santos, a legit fighter. And Nicholas Stoles just has not shown anything to me at all. I think that he's a fighter that's really susceptible to being tagged. I think that he has problems with his takedown defense. He's a little bit physically weak, and I don't think he's a UFC caliber fighter. And I was all over this spot here, and Saint Denis just was all over him. And of course, eventually, Saint Denis does get the rear naked choke victory in the second round. Damon Jackson takes out Daniel Argueta. This was a fight. I told you guys the betting line was off as well. there was two lines that were kind of questionable to me, but I wanted nothing to do with them because I did feel at the end of the day, both fighters were going to get the nod, and Damon Jackson as well. I knew that the size that he possessed and the fact that he is a very competent grappler that was going to give Daniel Argueta some problems because Argueta really likes to rely on his wrestling, which we saw. But Argueta is a tank. He's an absolute bulldog as well. And if he would have just tried to keep the fight on the feet in the third round and just try to use his striking, I think he could have finished Damon Jackson, possibly. The only problem he had there, he was the more fresher fighter at that point in time, but Argueta needs to work on his striking. As you guys saw, the striking is not really there. Damon Jackson's head was on a tee and he couldn't really finish him, and Damon Jackson was breathing very hard. But Argueta, when he drops down to his natural division at the bantamweight division and he starts to face guys that are not really suited to stuff the takedown and whatnot, he's going to give them a lot of trouble, and he will be hanging around inside the UFC. Mark my words on that. The former LFA champion, former Ultimate Fighter contestant. Then we had Joe Solecki take out Alex De Silva. This was a funny scorecard. If you guys remember how the scorecards were rung off, Joe Solecki thought he lost a fight when they started to announce the numbers. But I believe one of the judges gave Joe Solecki a 10-8 in the second round. We had the point deduction on Alex De Silva as well for putting his toes in the cage nonstop. It's just like he wasn't going to listen. He was warned 100 times in that round. He just was going to keep doing it and then act like he was confused in between rounds when the ref was discussing it with him. I'm happy for my boy Joe. You guys know we had an interview with him. Joe's a class act. His grappling is legit. He landed some heavy left hooks, but let's be real. This was Alex De Silva's fight to win if he would have kept his head on his shoulders and just tweaked a couple little things differently. He was getting the better of the striking exchanges. He's explosive. He did stuff some takedowns there. I think if he would have played it a little bit better, he should have won that fight. But Joe Solecki is serious with his grappling as well. His jiu-jitsu is for real. Needs to work on his striking and his striking defense. We saw him get dropped as soon as the fight started. And we'll see who he gets matched up with next to see if he can exploit his opponent or he might be exploited because he's a fighter that really... he's kind of polished up in one area. So if you guys catch my drift there. Karolina Kovacevic takes out Felice Herrig. You guys know this was a fight that was interesting to me. It was an official play of mine years ago when they first fought, and Karolina's last victory going into this fight, Felice Herrig with the long layoff coming back in. And I stuck with Karolina. I know that she's been looking like crap recently, but I did like the fact that she was down at American Top Team, and you saw... we saw the work that she was putting in there and really showcased in this fight. She looked to really be a fighter that was fighting similarly to what she used to put out there years ago. If you guys catch my drift, I mean, remember when she was an undefeated fighter, she moved through the ranks, she got the title opportunity against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She was a little bit more sharp and crisp with her strikes and her movement. She looked to be similar to that type of fighter. I don't know if she's really back to what she was, if we're being honest. It also might have been a little bit of the fact that Felice Herrig is, she was coming off a long layoff, and maybe we take it with a grain of salt. We'll see how Karolina performs in her next fight. Felice Herrig, whether you like what I was saying about her or not, it is fact. You can catch her on OnlyFans at this point in time. You can get all types of pictures from her, and she's going full time over there now. And but in all seriousness, you guys know I was having some fun joking about that. I want to give a tip of the hat to Felice Herrig because I've been watching her for a very, very long time, way before she ever got into the UFC, before the Ultimate Fighter show. I remember watching her over on HD Net Fights, and she's really a pioneer to an extent. So shout out to Felice Herrig. And then we had Alonzo Menefield take out Askar Mazarov. This guy Askar, it all came out that his record was all fugazi and fake. A lot of weird stuff going on all through the fight week. I'll say this much. I still think that he's a devastating striker, and I think if he gets the right stylistic matchup, he could really hurt some people on the feet. But he has major holes in his grappling and his takedown defense and all that, and he will get exploited. I don't even know if he'll get another opportunity. We talked about the fact that Alonzo Menefield would have the avenue to potentially use the grappling to take this fight. I know Alonzo just said that he wanted to use his wrestling. He's been really getting into wrestling and whatnot. I call a little bit of BS on that. I think that he knew that if he kept this fight on the feet, he was gonna lose. I do believe that. I think that Askar would have tagged him up and would have teed off on him, and you would have started to see the leg kicks whipping off and the power shots landed by Askar. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you can't keep the fight standing. It is what it is. And Alonzo, it's good to see that he's working on his overall game, and he should be doing that. He was very cerebral there. It was a smart move. He should be doing that because if he wants to move through the ranks, he needs to polish his overall skill set up anyway. So smart move by him there. Ode Osborne. This was a play that I almost made an official play. I stayed away from it. Giant strike landed on Zaruk Adashev. That's 2 times we've seen him laid out on the feet. All right. And this is a guy that was a former kickboxer, a very polished kickboxer. It's not translating over to the MMA scene that well. Karine Silva, an official play, man. This was what I like to say, this was the cherry on top. Okay. This was my second play coming in. Grabbed it at pick'em odds, -120. Karine Silva takes out Poliana Botella. I thought that Karine Silva was going to have a real opportunity to exploit Poliana's grappling. That wasn't even necessarily the case, right? She was outstriking her, landed that big shot. Eventually, she pulled off the sub, but it was due to the striking. Karine Silva, I posted it on my IG. She was very cool. She reached out to me the morning of the fights because I tagged her in something. She shot me the thumbs up, the fist, and she's a fighter that I'm interested to see perform in her next fight. She's a cool addition to the division. Lucas Almeida, I told you this line was off. I should have probably targeted him as an official play. The line was off. I don't know why Mike Trezano had a -240 next to his name. Movsar Ivoyov takes out Dan Ige. Movsar just continues to get the job done. The wrestling's legit. We'll see how he performs against fighters that can stuff those takedowns and really turn the fight into a slugfest on the feet. But Movsar, without a doubt, is a polished, talented fighter. And then we get to the main event. We had Alexander Volkov taking out Jairzinho Rozenstruik. What was your guys' opinion on the stoppage? My opinion was, well, first off, I want to say this. The fact that Volkov ate that shot and then laughed it off and went forward and then finished the fight right after that was badass, in my opinion, and really got me excited to see Volkov try to make a run in this division one more time. I thought the stoppage was slightly early, but I thought regardless, Jairzinho was on his way out. Volkov was going to lay it on him. He was hitting him with some heavy shots. What did we say when we broke down this fight? Volkov was going to win a decision if it went there. As far as the knockout went, either fighter could have landed that big shot, and Jairzinho could have landed that big shot as well, but people were sleeping on the fact that Volkov could have stopped this fight. Everybody was talking about, oh, Jairzinho has a solid chin. Volkov doesn't have that knockout power. No, we're talking about 2 big boys throwing down. Volkov has pinpoint accuracy. He lands a big shot. He's putting you out as well. Don't sleep on his finishing power. A great finish for him there. And we look at the top of the heavyweight division. I would love to see. I know there's talks right now that Derek Lewis has a fight on the horizon, but if that doesn't go through, I would love to see the rematch of Volkov and Lewis. Or I don't know. There's a lot of rumors of specific fights going on, so we'll see how the division plays out. But Volkov, without a doubt, puts his name right back into the top of the division, and everyone's excited to see him perform. That recaps UFC Vegas 56, another profitable event. All right, guys, we're cleaning up. You guys know the routine. If you want my official plays, reach out to me because this upcoming fight card, we're gonna hit really, really nice. I have some nice plays that I'm targeting, and with that all said, now I think it's time to move forward. Let's talk about these future fights now. Kicking the card off, we got Joselyne Edwards taking on Ramona Pascual. We just saw Ramona make her UFC debut about 3 months ago, where she fought the very, very tough and talented Joselyne Nunez, the short and compact grenade. She has very, very solid power in her hands, and we've been seeing her really put some beatings on some females recently. Ramona showed to be very, very tough in that fight because she got beat down on the feet, but continued to move forward. She had a couple of takedowns that she strung in throughout the fight, but she was kind of outclassed in the feet. But the point I want to make again is that Joselyne, we keep an eye on her moving forward. So maybe don't be so harsh on Ramona striking in that fight because she really had a tough test in front of her. Joselyne Edwards, on the other hand, she brings in a solid frame to the division. She's decently athletic. She has some good pop and some good power in her strikes as well. Her takedown defense has shown to be horrendous though at times. And both of her last fights against Jessica Rose Clark and Carol Rosa, she was taken down immediately. As soon as the fight started, I'm talking about within seconds, or both of her opponents just went across the octagon and just ripped her down to the mat. She had some moments throughout those fights where she was able to get back up to her feet, or she was able to pull some type of reversal off with her jiu-jitsu. There was a funny transition in the Rosa fight where she was mounted but used her legs to completely throw over her head and kind of come out the back under Rosa and get on top. It was kind of a weird move there. I mean, I know she's still very young and she's working on some things, and she does have some promise on the feet, but her takedown defense is a major liability, in my opinion, if you're betting on her. All right. Ramona Pascual, if you break down tape on her, you know, she's a fighter that has shown to be decently well-rounded, in my opinion. And you see her here with my boy Sasha. Shout out to Sasha Palatnikov. As you see Ramona training over at Syndicate MMA over in Vegas. Yeah, I think that Ramona is a well-rounded fighter. She puts a lot of volume on the feet, not necessarily real torque and power into her shots, but she puts a lot of volume out there. She can rack up some points. She's competent with her jiu-jitsu. I think she only has one submission victory. We'll pull that up, but I've seen her down on the mat, showing to be competent with her jiu-jitsu. And again, we saw her string off 2 nice takedowns against Joselyne, even when she was down and hurt. So she knows how to get these little inside trip takedowns where she really judges her distance well and times her takedown entries, and she'll pull those off. And we've seen her doing that outside of the UFC. Yeah, so as I said, 1 submission victory, but I do think that she has more of an ability and that aspect of her game than shown just if you go through her resume. She had that 1 key lock armbar. I think against certain opponents that are lacking there, I could see her pulling off some subs when she gets to fight down to the mat. And I think there's an absolute possibility that she strings off takedowns in this fight and really strings off some control time and racks up some rounds in this fight. Now, if she has trouble getting the takedown against Joselyne Edwards here, I could definitely see Edwards landing the cleaner and heavier shots in the feet and bloodying up Ramona. I think that it won't be a walk in the park. If the fight stays just on the feet, I still think that Ramona has the ability to make it a close fight on the feet, but I would definitely favor Joselyne Edwards. And you see Joselyne Edwards getting it in over here with the Shevchenko sisters, so that's a great thing. There's a lot of fighters in this fight card that were training together in their respective gyms or camps, so that's always a good thing to see. I think this was very good for Joselyne, of course, when you're training with the best women's mixed martial arts fighter of all time. That's definitely going to help your overall game. But if she's smart, she was just straight up working on her takedown defense. Here's the X factor too, though. Valentina has been trying to help her sister work on her takedown defense and her grappling for a long period of time. And Antonina's takedown defense really has never caught up to what you would hope that it would have gotten up to match her striking. So I don't think necessarily just because Joselyne's training with Valentina that's going to be the case. And that's why, as we pull up the live betting line here, I'm actually going to go with the dog here. I'm going to take Ramona Pascual at the plus 145 line. I would favor her more so at that line. And in fact, as a straight up pick, I'll take Ramona here. I think that she's going to get some takedowns in this fight. And again, there's the possibility that she really just goes in there and she fights this fight smart, goes in and just rips a takedown as soon as the bell rings. I'll take Ramona Pascual to win this fight here. We got another women's fight going down next. We have Silvana Gómez Juárez taking on Liang or Liang Na. You guys know how it goes with some of the Chinese fighters' names. They like to reverse the last name and first name or whatnot. So don't give me a hard time about that. I'm going to start saying it as Tapology says it, and we'll go by Na Liang. Na Liang, the Dragon Girl, still very young, only 25 years old. Came out in her last fight like a bat out of hell against Ariane Cornelosi. Na Liang is a fighter that is very tenacious in there. She's ferocious. She goes after her opponents. She definitely showed to be lacking in certain aspects of her game in that fight against Cornelosi. Of course, she ended up wilting to the ground and pound. It was kind of an awkward stoppage too. I don't know if she popped a rib or something happened, but if you guys run the tape back, the way that she kind of just verbally tapped, it was a little weird. A lot of the big shots didn't even get to be landed yet by Cornelosi, but it's like Liang knew they were coming and she verbally submitted. Silvana Gómez Juárez, 10-4. She's 37 years old now, coming off 2 losses. The Vanessa Demopoulos fight, that was a fight where she landed that big shot on the feet, but fell right into the trap of Demopoulos. But do understand that Demopoulos is a very, very polished BJJ fighter, and I think a lot of fighters could have fell into that same trap. If they landed a big shot, they were going in for the kill. Demopoulos is extremely flexible, and she's very polished with her BJJ. But we've seen Silvana submitted before as well, though, right? She got caught by an armbar by Lupita very early. Lupita, a very tough fighter. She's a tough outing for anybody in the division. And then before that, outside the UFC, she was stringing off some victories. was watching some of her early tape as well from a few years back before she made it to the UFC. She has decent pop in her hands. She seems to be the more technical striker than Na Liang. When things were really getting crazy in there for Na Liang, her striking showed to have some major holes in it as far as from a technique standpoint. She was throwing these rabid punches on the feet, but at the same time, I like the aggressiveness that she showcased. She's a decent grappler. I pulled up plenty of her fights where she was really working nice inside trips and ripping her opponents down to the mat, working submissions. I know it was against lower level competition. But now we're talking about 2 fights in a row now from Silvana where she's shown some holes in the grappling department. I'm not so sure that Na Liang can exploit that and get a submission as well. Also, losses to Poliana Botella and Ariane Lipsky, 2 UFC caliber fighters, but before the 2 losses as of recently for Silvana. So something worth noting as well. Na Liang, again, only 25 years old, so I do expect to see strides in her game. She's still very young. She's bringing in a substantial reach advantage here, almost over a 4-inch reach advantage. She's 2 inches taller. I'm going to take the Dragon Girl here. I am going to take the Dragon Girl. I think that she can get the job done. I'm going to go back-to-back dogs for the first 2 plays in this card. I'm not necessarily super confident in both these picks, but you know what? Why not? When you break down tape on both these fights, there's nothing to me that stands out on the favorites that says that they should be going in there and handling business. I don't respect the -162 line on Silvana Gómez Juárez here. Again, though, if she can stuff the takedowns nonstop, use good footwork, be very cautious in there. Yeah, she might be able to pump the 1-2 and land the sharper straight shots if she slows this fight down. But Na Liang is not going to let this just be a boring fight. She's going to come out. She's going to make this a brawl. Hopefully, she doesn't allow herself to be finished as she goes into that rabid mode. She puts a lot of action out there. Then sometimes she's vulnerable to being finished as well, as we saw in the Cornelossi fight. That's also a possibility. But I like the avenue that Na Liang might be able to pull off a sub or takes control down on the mat, or just her aggressiveness maybe looks better for the judges' scorecards if it goes to a decision. And this is a fight, a lot of female fights, I favor them going to decision. This isn't a female fight where I necessarily feel that type of way. I think there's a good possibility we see a finish in this fight. There's going to be 2 fighters that are clashing here, but I'll take Na Liang to win the fight. Dragon Girl. Kyung Ho Kong taking on Danaa Batgerel. Danaa just coming off a big knockout loss. I say that with a smile on my face because I did have an official play on his opponent, Chris Gutierrez. Danaa looked pretty good in that fight before he got finished. And it's quite funny if you run the tape back in that fight. In the first round, Chris Gutierrez threw out a spinning attack and he got taken down at the end of the first round. And Danaa landed some good ground and pound, took the round with the damage he did there. And Daniel Cormier said, why the hell is he going for these spinning attacks? That was a mistake. It was kind of ironic because eventually a couple minutes later, he finishes the fight with the spinning attack. Not saying I'm necessarily a fan of my fighter throwing those spinning attacks out because it does put them in vulnerable positions. But I'll say this much. Even though Batgerel was just finished devastatingly 2 months ago, which is not a long period of time for him to recover at all, when you look at that knockout loss, excuse me here, if you run the tape back on that, the way that he was hit and put out and the way that he jumped back up, and if you actually see him, he goes to the center of the octagon and starts jumping up and down as if he wanted to continue to fight Chris Gutierrez. I think that he's a bull. I really do think he's a bull. I love the pressure that he brings to his opponent as he's fighting in there. He's not constantly coming forward. You're not going to see him on the back foot, which I very much favor fighters that fight with that style because barring there's no knockout in the fight, it really favors them to win on the judges' scorecards. I mean, when they're constantly pressuring and they're landing those power shots like he throws, you land a couple of those power shots, the crowd makes a roar. It looks good on the judges' scorecards. And there's always the ability that he knocks his opponent out as well. He really throws his shots from the hip, and there's definitely the possibility that he can put anybody out. I will say this, Mr. Perfect Kang has not been finished throughout his career very much at all, so he's shown to have a good chin. But one thing that's alarming to me, man, when you look at his resume, it really just doesn't look good on paper. And we could talk about the specific fights more individually. But I mean, even if you look at his victories, split decision victories against fighters that I'm not high on, Ping Yang Lu, Brandon Davis. He had the finish over Taruta Ishihara, the Japanese fighter from Team Alpha Male, who never really did anything in the octagon. His last fight was under Uriah Faber's new promotion. He had the split decision, a loss to Ricardo Ramos. That was a fun fight. That might have been his best fight, even though it was a loss. That was a fun fight. But I'm just not really that high in his resume. In his last fight against Haniyaya, if you break down tape in that fight, it's not necessarily the best fight to watch because it's an extreme different type of stylistic matchup. Haniyaya was pushing the grappling pace nonstop. And keep in mind, Haniyaya will be fighting Cody Garbrandt in his next fight. That's a fun fight stylistically. Good to see Cody getting matched up with the guy that's not going to take his head off. I'm excited for that fight. But in this fight here, I've been a little bit back and forth. I like the size advantage that Kyung Ho Kang brings to the table here. 3-inch reach advantage. He's a little bit taller. He's pretty crisp with his striking overall. Throws more straight shots. But I'm taking Danaa Batgerel. I think that his pressure and just the overall bull mentality that he has will lead him to victory here, barring he doesn't get clipped with the shot. If he loses this fight, I see him getting clipped by a shot. And other than that, though, when you break down tape on both these guys, I think that Danaa has showed more to me. He's a little bit more impressive of a fighter. And we'll pull up the live line here on Bovada.lv. Keep in mind, guys, if you want to sign up through Bovada.lv, reach out to me. Let me give you my referral link, and I will give you all my official bets for this upcoming fight card for free. You guys know the routine here. All right. So we pull up the live line. Danaa Batgerel right now, -155 with the comeback on Kyung Ho Kang at +130. I would rather take Batgerel here, even with the -155 tag next to his name. If the line stays around that, I wouldn't want to take Danaa, and if the line gets out of hand, if it goes up towards that -200 range, -180, 190, be careful. Because remember now, he just came off a brutal knockout, and there's definitely a possibility that Ho Kang could land a clean shot that hurts him pretty quickly. But I'll take Danaa Batgerel to win the fight there. Jakey Boy Matthews taking on Andre Fialho. You guys, Andre Fialho has bursted onto the scene. You guys comment right now. If you're watching this live, hit the comment section up, or if you're watching this after the fact, hit the comment section up there anyway. Who is a fighter that we've seen burst on the scene in similar fashion to Andre Fialho and has made a name for himself in the octagon so quickly? Andre Fialho, without a doubt, is one of the top fighters to ever do that. This guy, the UFC loves the action that he brings to the table. He's only 28 years old, and he's very, very quickly made a name for himself inside the UFC. And now he's getting a fight with the kid in Jake Matthews. We talked about the fact that his mom paid to reserve the UFC octagon to deliver Jake Matthews inside of the octagon. Gave birth to him there, where he had his first fight just weeks later. I think he fought when he was just a couple months old. I say that jokingly because Jake Matthews has fought in the UFC for a long period of time now. 22 professional fights, almost all of them taking place in the UFC, or a lot of fights taking place in the UFC. Still only 27 years old, which blows my mind because we've been watching him for such a long period of time. He's had his ups and downs. One thing I'll say about Jake Matthews, although he has a solid record, he's really fought lower level competition in the UFC. He's kind of been babied a little bit. When you look at the James Vick loss, the Kevin Lee loss, Andrew Holbrook loss, they don't look as good these days. The victories, if you go through them, none of them really noteworthy. I mean, the Jinglang Lee victory, okay. The Johnny Case, remember him? He was an undefeated prospect back in the day, but disappeared. Rostam Akhman, the guy couldn't find a razor or anything to get that hair off him for the life of him. Emil Weber Meek and Diego Sanchez way late in the game. I mean, these are not any type of legit victories really when you go through them. And now you got a guy in Andre Fialho who's just kind of an under the radar type of fighter who's been putting in work over in XMMA, knocking out James Vick, a similar opponent, different points of time in their careers, but still fighting over at UAE Warriors, knocking dudes out left and right. Had a fight over in PFL, a couple fights there. He's fought over in Bellator. You take a look at his losses, too, against Chidi Njokuani, Chris Curtis. We're talking about legit fighters. Michel Pereira, love him or hate him. This guy is a very tricky fighter, and not a lot of guys go out there and defeat Michel Pereira. All right, so coming off those two big knockout victories against Baeza, Van Camp, I like the size advantage that he brings to the table here, too. He's an inch taller with 2-inch reach advantage. Jake Matthews is a solid dude, but Andre Fialho with a more natural, larger frame for the division. Even though you see him looking kind of small here. And keep in mind here, training with Brendan Allen, who's also fighting on this card, who I'm very high on. And then also, was it George Tokos, I believe his name is. He's a fellow Greek too, Tuko 300. Keep an eye on George here. George, I believe his name's George. Hopefully I'm not messing that up, but you call him Tokos, Tuko, whatever. He's fighting this weekend too on the fight card that's on UFC Fight Pass that is called UFC Up and Comers. And these guys have been very tight, all these guys, and they've been putting in work together. These three have become very tight over at Sanford MMA, and you guys know I'm very high on that gym. And I think that all three of these fighters are going to be polished up and ready to go for this upcoming weekend. So you keep an eye on that. That's always a good thing to have three like-minded guys really on the grind there. I'm going to pick Andre Fialho to win this fight. I think that he'll get the better of the striking. Keep in mind that Jake Matthews is decently polished there as well and possesses underrated power. He can land a big shot as well, but I think Fialho has the edge from a technical standpoint. I think that Fialho can keep this fight on the feet, and overall, he's coming in very hot right now. He's like I said, he trains with the best of them. He sees all types of top-level talent in the gym on a daily basis. Whereas Jake Matthews, this is who Jake Matthews is getting it in with. And you know, it's not a knock on any of these guys, but you cannot compare the fight camps, all right? These guys are like something out of a modern-day WWE. If you were to go to the toy section in Walmart and you pick two random action figures that were on sale from the WWE section over there. I say that because I used to be a big wrestling fan, but I don't really know any of the wrestlers these days. They just look like these guys to me. But I don't know who those guys are. And the point being is that I think Fialho's getting in better work with higher level opponents, and I'm picking him to win the fight here. And Fialho's coming in at a minus 155 favorite against Matthews at plus 130. I think that's an accurate line. Keep in mind, Matthews is legit. He's competent, and he's still young after all the time he's put in. So he'll still see a better and better version of him. I'll lean Fialho here, and there's definitely a possibility we see a finish here. Both these guys throw heavy shots. We got Hayisaer, Maheshate taking on Steve Garcia. This guy Maheshate is an interesting fighter. If you guys remember, coming into his fight on Dana White's Contender Series, it was very hard to find tape on him. And then when we finally got to see him perform, me personally, I was very impressed from what I saw from him on the show. If you guys remember, he was clipped with a big shot in the first round, stayed very calm and composed throughout the onslaught there against the undefeated Achilles, as a Greek as I like to say it, but Achilles, who seemed to be a pretty talented fighter himself. Maheshate stayed very, very calm and composed and came back and really put some work in the second and third round, really showcased the striking abilities he possesses. I like the kicks he threw. He's a very technical fighter. He's only 22 years old. And if you guys remember, the word on him they were saying is that they're all praising him. All the people that are around his inner circle, the word coming out is that he's one of the fighters that they're really praising and they think is going to make a big run in the UFC. So at only 22 years old, I'll say this much. I'm very excited to see him mature and turn into a grown man over the next couple of years. I think that he will be a legit fighter. Steve Garcia, we've seen him throw down over in Bellator. He's made his way to the UFC. He's coming into this fight as a favorite. We'll talk about that betting line right now. He's coming into this fight as a favorite. I was a little surprised to see that. Steve Garcia, he's a tough dude. You see him working over here with Mike Winklejohn. Has that tricky southpaw stance that gives guys problems at times. In his last fight, he had a big victory over Charlie Ontiveros. Charlie Ontiveros actually wobbled Steve Garcia in the first round, and Charlie Ontiveros, we'll start to use this phrase moving forward, and I mean no disrespect by it, but Charlie Ontiveros was a little bit of what I like to call a discount fighter. That's what I'll call that moving forward. A discount fighter in the sense that he took a fight on short notice against Kevin Holland because Kevin Holland's opponent fell out, and the UFC owed him another fight. So when I say a discount fighter, he's a fighter that they really may not be UFC caliber fighters. And I think that Ontiveros is not a UFC caliber fighter. Steve Garcia just went in there and got tagged and wobbled. Eventually, he won the fight anyway. But before that, lost to Luis Pena, Violent Bob Ross. He's back throwing down again. If you guys didn't see that, if you follow him on IG. And then, a couple finishes there. Dana White's Contender Series over at LFA. Overall, I haven't been necessarily super impressed with Steve Garcia, but at the same time, he's a tough dude. He's a decently well-rounded fighter. He's a guy that he's not a bad fighter to watch perform. When he's throwing down, the fight will turn out to be a pretty entertaining fight, so I will say that, but something's a little bland about him. It's probably the name, Steve Garcia, just another guy coming from Dana White's Contender Series, LFA, that really just, for whatever reason, this kind of went under the radar. We'll see if he can make a statement here, but I'll say this: he brings in a slight reach advantage, both 6 foot, almost similar frames here. I like Maheshate here to win the fight. I'm gonna pull up the betting line too. He's coming in as an underdog at plus 130, but I like Maheshate to win the fight. I was just really impressed with the way that he ate shots and then composed himself and then started putting the onslaught on with his own technical strikes, throwing body kicks, nice crisp boxing, and I'm going to take him to win the fight there. It may play out to be a close fight. It may play out to be a very entertaining type of a brawl, but I think Maheshate's technique on the feet will end up getting him the fight, and don't be surprised if he clips Steve Garcia and gets a finish himself, as we've seen Steve Garcia wobbled a little bit. He might be due for a knockout and a fight where I see both fighters clashing. All right, so my pick there is the Chinese fighter Maheshate. Seung Choi taking on Joshua Culibao. Seung Choi coming off a tough loss. He's really been flashing inside the octagon over the past couple years, but did taste bitter defeat against Alex Caceres, where he got put in that rear naked choke. I was lacking in the grappling department at a point in time in that fight and ended up costing him. He did drop Bruce Leroy early in that fight, once again showcasing the technical abilities he possesses on the feet. A long time Muay Thai fighter. He's a very talented kickboxing type of fighter. Really has some skills there. He's working on his overall game. He brings in a phenomenal frame to the division at 6 foot with a 74.5 inch reach. He has a very, very nice frame. He has the ability to give a lot of guys trouble on the feet. We saw him knock out Julian Erosa, take out Yusuf Zalal, and Suman Mokhtarian. Really, the Yusuf Zalal and the Julian Erosa fight were his two big-time fights. Joshua Culibao just took out the Chinese fighter Xiaolan, and before that had the split decision draw with Charles Jourdain. That was a tough fight where he really went through some adversity, but had some moments as well. Had the loss to Jalen Turner before that. And it's funny, Joshua Culibao reminds me of Jacob Malkoun, who we'll be talking about in a second. Both guys, they kind of remind me of each other. They look a little similar. Believe they're both fighting out of Australia. Both made their UFC debuts and got knocked out, but have since kind of righted the ship a little bit. But Culibao, more of a striking type of fighter, where Malkoun is obviously more of a grappling fighter. Culibao favors his striking. Not a lot of submission victories on his resume to go against a guy in Choi where you really would like to exploit his grappling. I mean, that's what we saw cost him in his last fight. If I were Choi, that's one aspect of his overall game that he definitely needs to work on is the takedown defense and the jiu-jitsu defense. I don't think that Culibao is necessarily that threat here. I think Culibao is going to entertain a striking type of affair, and I think it could cost him. I definitely think that Choi could land a big shot here and get the finish. You see Culibao doing his thing over here, double fisting. But yeah, no, I think that Seung Choi should take this fight. I think he's the more polished striker. He's been striking since he's very young. I think that that's what he does, and I just see that this fight playing out that type of way where it favors him here. So stylistically, I do like the matchup here for him. We'll take a look at the betting line here, and you'll see a line next to Seung Choi of minus 240. So coming in as a pretty hefty favorite here. Like I said, stylistically, the match does favor him. It's a little bit of a high line in my opinion, but I think he gets the job done. Joshua Culibao, a little bit of an underrated fighter in my opinion. He has decent power. I could see him bringing the fight a little bit, making the fight kind of an ugly affair. Maybe he has some moments and steals this one, but overall, I do have Seung Choi to win the fight. Jacob Malkoun taking on Brendan Allen. We just talked about Jacob here a minute ago. We talked about that devastating loss that he took against Phil Haas. At the time, a lot of people thought At least I was kind of wondering, did the UFC just gift him that opportunity to fight inside the UFC based on the fact that he's a longtime Robert Whittaker training partner? That fight did take place on the undercard of a big Bobby Knuckles fight. Maybe he kind of brought him on with him. Sometimes fighters do have the ability to do that contractually. We've seen that a lot. I mean, we've seen Anderson Silva have one of his boys from the favelas who'd never even been in a real fight in his life, but just got him in the UFC and was able to get a paycheck. If you guys remember the fighter I'm talking about, very tall guy. But I say that jokingly, but he was not a UFC caliber fighter. But we've seen many fighters bring in fighters with him. I thought that may have been the case. That's not the case at all. Jacob Malkoun is a very polished grappler. He has the ability to really drag fighters into deep waters, especially fighters that are not competent in that department. We saw him just out wrestle and out grapple a guy in AJ Dobson who's actually decently prepared there. So really showing that he can thrive in those types of fights. Against Abdul Razak Al Hassan, you know the deal with that. That's a fighter that's lacking in that department, and Jacob Malkoun dragged him to the deep waters. Brendan Allen is not that type of fighter. Brendan Allen is a very polished grappler. He's very well-rounded, and this is a solid fight for him here. And again, you see the trio here with Henry Hooft, who in my opinion is one of the best striking coaches in the game. You guys know I say that all the time. And I think that you can expect Brendan Allen striking to look better and better and better. He's only 26 years old, training with Henry Hooft. He's a fighter that really possesses some real potential, in my opinion. He had that tough loss against Chris Curtis, and he also had, let's see here, he's coming off the victory against Sam Alvey in his last fight. Victories over Punahele Sariano and Carl Robertson before that. Again, if you really break down tape on Allen, you'll see that he's just prepared everywhere. Lost to Sean Strickland about a year and a half ago. That was a fight where he engaged in the brawl, and Sean Strickland just landed some big shots and wobbled him early. I think if they fought 100 times, I think that it would actually maybe not even out, but I think that Allen would win more than some people would think there. I think that it was just an off night for him. Allen's a very talented fighter. I think stylistically this is a tough fight for Malkoun because Allen will be prepared to stuff takedowns, and if Malkoun just thinks he's going to go out there and smother him, I think that he could be in trouble, and it could wear on the gas tank of Malkoun as well, as Allen stuffs those takedowns and then lands the crisp jab and a couple crisp shots on the feet. I think he can start to hurt Malkoun there, and there's potential for Allen to get a knockout here as well. As we saw Malkoun knocked out against Phil Hawes. Of course, Phil Hawes has some real power, but do understand that Allen has some crisp boxing. He has some crisp boxing as well, and he can land a shot to finish you. I'm definitely going to pick Brendan Allen here. And he's coming into this fight as a minus 250 favorite. So he's a pretty hefty favorite here. And I think stylistically it makes sense for him to have that type of tag next to his name because he should be able to avoid the danger that Malkoun possesses, which is smothering his opponents with the grappling. If he's not up to par there, though, Malkoun will be a wet blanket and will drown him there. But I got Allen winning this fight. We got Jack Della Maddalena taking on Ramazan Emeev Goretz, the Dagestani fighter. Ramazan Emeev, an underrated fighter in my opinion. First and foremost, coming off a loss, but a lot of people thought that he should have won that fight against Danny Roberts. It was a close fight. Emeev doesn't always have the most entertaining type of fighting style. He definitely has a lot of success pushing fighters up against the cage, controlling them there. We do know as of recently, especially over the last year or so, the judges are not scoring that as much as they used to. So do note that. Whereas Jack Della Maddalena should have the striking advantage here. Also do keep in mind that Ramazan possesses decent skills in the striking department as well. He's not completely inadequate there, but Jake Della Maddalena has really impressed me with his boxing, the way he switches stances. He's a treat to watch, coming off that big knockout victory over Pete Rodriguez. Not necessarily a household name, but still the performance that he put out there was impressive. And Pete Rodriguez is a guy that was coming into that fight with not a lot of experience, but starching everybody that he faced on the regional scene. Before that, Jake Della Maddalena took out Ange Lusa, a talented striker, I believe fighting out of Sanford MMA as well. So, you know, that victory carries some weight there. Jack is only 25 years old, about to be 26, much younger than Ramazan. He will have almost just about a 5-inch reach advantage here. Both guys almost the same height. Jake is the more naturally larger man, comes in jacked up, and I like the frame he possesses. I think that he's a serious fighter, he's a serious addition to the division, and this is a tough test for him here. I like the test that the UFC is giving him. If he can get past Ramazan Emeev, I think that people will really start to take note of him. And I think that the key to his success here is to keep the distance, use solid footwork, use the stance switching and whatnot, but make sure he doesn't get pressed against the cage and controlled there. He has to be able to break off and shine with his striking. Now, I will say this also, though. Jack Della, Maddalena really is confident in his head movement and his striking defense, and at times he will put himself in the fire and he'll just be out of way of harm's reach by inches. And it looks nice, but do understand, we're talking about a game of inches there, man. If he gets clipped by a shot from Emeev, we could see him bloodied up or wobbled. Ramazan, like I said earlier, he is a well-rounded fighter. He's a very physically strong guy. And I do like Jack Della Maddalena to win this fight, but you're talking about a fighter in Ramazan Emeev that is very, very competent and very, very capable of going out there and getting the job done. So just understand that Jack Della Maddalena is a minus 150 favorite with the comeback on Ramazan Emeev at plus 125. Maybe I would like Jack more around the minus 140, minus 135 range. Maybe the line comes back that way, depending. I'm kind of interested to monitor this line here. I know people are going to be high on Jack as well. He has a lot of steam behind him. And I will pick Jack Della Maddalena to win this fight. I think that he uses the footwork and outstrikes Ramazan, scores some good points, and there's potential that he really bloodies up or puts it on Ramazan as well. I mean, he brings the fight, and he really has had success in some of his past fights with his striking. So he's a very confident fighter. He might come out really looking to put it on Ramazan as well. So I like Jack to win the fight. Rogério Bontorin taking on Kape. Manel Kape, first and foremost, let me pull this up. If you guys didn't know, he basically just had a 6-month suspension for testing positive for trace amounts of the long-term metabolite of the steroid testosterone called the M3 metabolite in a drug test last month conducted by USADA. All right, so I'm not a doctor, but something was a little off with what he was doing. That's something that's noteworthy. He's a very explosive athlete, is Manel Kape. We saw him just recently knock out Zalga Zumagulov, who's not easily knocked out. We saw the flying knee he landed on Odi Osborne. In his UFC debut against Alexandre Pantoja, he was very hesitant. If you're ever worried about taking Manel Kape, the one thing I don't like about him is at times he could be hesitant in there. But when he lets it go, he is very quick. He's very technical. He's a well-rounded fighter. He can wrestle. He's very physically strong for the division. And when he really puts it out there, I think he could really give anybody a problem in the division. I think that he kind of left both those fights on the table, the Matheus Nicolau and Alexander Pantoja fight. Both fights, if he would have put more volume out there, I think he could have took those. So we could be talking about him as an undefeated fighter right now in the UFC. Starboy. I mean, he has potential to be a star in the division. We keep an eye on him. He's only 28 years old. We'll see what's up with how he looks as far as that whole drug test situation. Bontorin, a guy that always brings the fight, dating back to the Julian Paiva fight. He got that victory, but, I cashed on that fight. But that was a fight that was just starting to get going, and there was a cut that Paiva that they had to stop the fight. Bontorin, a very well-rounded fighter, possesses good power, has good jiu-jitsu skills. Both these guys have very similar frames. I think that Bontorin has the ability to make this a closer fight than some people believe. Yes, there's definitely the ability for Manel Kape to go out there and starch Bontorin. I could see something like that happening. I mean, he has that big time power. But if he's a little bit hesitant in there and Bontorin can kind of pressure him and land some shots, the scorecards may play out closer than some believe that they will. There's that ability for sure. Bontorin throws big power shots as well. As of recently, coming off a loss to Brandon Royval, a split decision. It was a fun fight. The victory over Matt Schnell. And then he got knocked out by Carcara France, who's knocking out everybody. And then lost to Ray Borg. So fighting high-level competition in the division. One of my favorite divisions right now, man. The flyweight division has really been brewing. You guys know I've been saying that. A lot of fighters coming in the division. People have been sleeping on this division for years. Bontorin is an addition to the division. We're going to see what he's made of here fighting, an athletic, very talented fighter, Manel Kape. I got to go with Kape to win the fight. I'll take Starboy here. I think that he could land a big shot and potentially bloody up or hurt Bontorin at a specific moment in this fight and kind of take control of it. But I will say this, don't sleep on Bontorin. He's a fighter that's been a little bit under the radar for some time. And he's a guy that can give anybody a problem in the division if the night is right. He can make it a close fight. We'll take a look at the live betting line here. Bontorin at almost a plus 185. Nothing new. He's been coming in as a dog in a lot of his fights in the UFC. And he's been making these fights close. But Manel Kape at minus 230. Maybe a little high, but I think he gets the job done. And Kape is not necessarily a fighter that you should feel bad placing action on, even at a line like this, because the guy really has some solid abilities and he's starting to catch his groove. But you do have that little X factor with the drug test situation. So this is a little bit of a tricky fight. This one right here is a little bit of a tricky fight. The more I was digging deeper and deeper into this fight, I'm interested to see how it goes down. But I do see Manel Kape getting his hand raised. Hey, you guys, real quick, if you're looking for a new sports book, you guys know the routine. Reach out to me. I'll give you my referral link. If you sign up through it, I'm giving you all my official plays for this upcoming weekend. All right, guys? It's one of the best sports betting sites out there. It's bovada.lv. It's what I use. I don't work for them. I don't have any type of connection to them other than the fact that it's my favorite sports book. And I recommend, if you guys are able to use this sports book, you use it. It's just simple. It's clean. They have great customer service. The payouts are easy. Reach out to me if you're looking for a new sports book. You're going to get a dope deposit bonus that's really going to help you get a kickstart. You drop $100, you're starting with $150. I recommend you take that. Never mind the rollovers. If you guys don't know the deal with the rollovers, never mind the rollovers. Always take advantage of the free money. If your money has to sit in there for a card or two, who cares? We're betting on every one of these fight cards. Let your account sit there. All right. And take advantage of the free money. That's how you win long term. You need to take advantage of every different avenue to be in the green. And reach out to me, man. We could talk about all this stuff. Let's get you winning some money. Joanna Jędrzejczyk steps back into the octagon to face off with an old foe, Weili Zhang, the former champion. As you see behind me, we have the official scorecards from the first time they threw down. Who did you guys have winning the first fight, first and foremost? Everybody hit the comment section up right now. Who did you guys have winning this fight? Michael Bell had it for Zhang, 48-47. Derek clearly had it 48-47 for Zhang. And then Eric Colon did have it for Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Now, watching this fight, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I was at the bar. I was having a good time. I mean, we were going crazy watching this fight. I thought Joanna Jędrzejczyk was going to get the nod. I thought she finished strongly. I'm not going to say that I was literally watching every second of the fight, staring at it like I normally watch my fights. I'll be honest with you guys. This was a fight that I was out and about. And you guys know these days I'm not really at the bars like I was. So this was a fight that I was having a good time. But the whole bar thought Joanna won this fight, at least the circle I was with. That's not saying much, obviously. You guys know how that goes. I've watched it back a little bit. I've jumped around to a couple rounds that I wanted to rewatch. I thought you could say the fight could have went either way. They were really engaged in a brawl. Joanna Jędrzejczyk was pressuring a lot. Zhang was landing the heavier shots. That's one thing you could say that kind of favored Zhang to get the fight. She was really landing some big time shots. The fact that Joanna Jędrzejczyk had that big hematoma on her forehead did not look good. But I think the hematoma made her look like she was getting beat up more so than what was actually happening, especially towards the end of the fight. Joanna was landing some shots too. I don't know. It was a close fight. And it doesn't matter now because they're going to square off once again here. And Joanna Jędrzejczyk hasn't been in there for over 2 years. It's a long layoff. She's been rested up. I think that's a good thing. I think people are looking at the layoff like it's a bad thing. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that she needed a layoff. She's 34 years old. She's a stud athlete. Weili Zhang coming off 2 losses. The Rose Namajunas loss and 2 losses in a row, of course, the knockout loss and then the split decision loss. There's no question that Zhang is one of the top female fighters in the world. We know that she was putting in some work with Henry Cejudo not too long ago. She has the buzz haircut now and this and that. And, she's a threat, man. She's a threat to anybody in the division. And some people may believe that she's the uncrowned king or the uncrowned queen. She's coming back for the title. I wouldn't argue with you on that. But But I'm a giant fan of Joanna Jędrzejczyk, as I said. I love the striking ability that Joanna possesses. Like I said, Joanna may not possess as much power as Zhang. I expect Zhang to land those bigger shots, but from a judge's standpoint, Joanna Jędrzejczyk might outvolume Zhang here and may be able to steal some rounds. It's a 3-round fight now. It's not a 5-round fight. So this fight's going to play out a little bit differently than the first time around. Joanna's going to have to step on the gas early, and that may favor Zhang a little bit more so, with Zhang letting the tank out, letting the gas out, and throwing those heavy shots early, and maybe she could hurt Joanna. But Joanna has shown to be a very durable fighter. And Joanna is just very, very fluid with her overall striking. We take a look at the frames here. Joanna, a little bit of a more lengthy fighter. I would like to see Joanna really use her footwork in this fight. I want to see her circling and kind of trying to land from the outside. I don't want to see her engaging in an absolute war like the first fight, because I think that the power shots from Zhang could catch up to Joanna, and there could be some big shots landed where it really skews the judges to go that way, where it looks like she's taking the fight, kind of like the first fight. I'm going to pick Joanna Jędrzejczyk, though. One of my favorite fighters in the game. You saw Karolina Kowalkiewicz, how she just looked in her last fight. So, of course, American top teams always doing their thing. People are talking about Joanna with the layoff and whatnot, that she may not be as ready to go as she needs to be. I don't agree with that. I think that she's been working on her craft, sharpening up specific things. And I think that she'll be a better version of herself than we've ever seen. I have a feeling that's going to be the case. I'm going to pick her to win the fight. I'll tell you what, man, if you guys ever met Joanna Jędrzejczyk, or if you ever seen her in person, I know she looks thin, obviously, when she's doing the weight cut and whatnot. She's a stallion, man. She's really a stallion. She's a large woman. A very physically strong girl, and I'm excited to see her perform. I hope she gets the nod here. It's going to be a crazy fight, and I have nothing but respect for Zhang, and do understand that Zhang is just not a fighter you necessarily want to bet against. I'll say this much, though, from a betting standpoint, at least if you were to take Joanna, you're getting a plus 155 tag next to her name, and a fight that was razor close the first time around. Zhang tasting defeat twice in a row. The ability for Zhang to get knocked out. We saw her just knocked out recently against Thug Rose. I mean, the chin has been tested. She's been going through some wars as of recently. Does Joanna land a head kick? Maybe she hurts her bad there. I think that's a realistic possibility that people are sleeping on. I think there's more value on Joanna Jędrzejczyk at a plus 155 tag than Weili Zhang for sure. And I'll even slightly edge Joanna to get the job done. And we'll see how that fight goes. It's going to be a close one. Valentina Shevchenko taking on Talia Santos. Valentina Shevchenko, you guys know, my favorite women's mixed martial artist of all time. I truly believe she is, without a doubt, the greatest women's mixed martial artist we've ever seen perform inside the octagon or in MMA in general. She's such a treat to watch. You guys know I thought that she defeated Amanda Nunes both times they fought. Insert controversy in the comment section right now. I know some people will disagree with me, but the fact that Amanda Nunes just lost the way she did definitely solidified at the moment Valentina being the pound for pound queen over there. So such a well-rounded fighter, just such a professional. I love I love watching her showcase her striking. It's razor sharp. If you were an up-and-coming fighter, male or female, I think that if you were to model yourself after a fighter, Valentina Shevchenko is probably the fighter that you want to model yourself after from a technique standpoint. Just everything is so sharp. She's so well-rounded. As of recently, taking out Lauren Murphy, just outclassing these women, knocking out Jessica Andrade. The Jennifer Maia fight was one of her fights that, as of recent, that wasn't her best, but still finishing strong, winning easily, finishing Caitlin Chikogian. We know the deal with her, man. What she did to Jessica Ai was just disgusting. One of the most nasty knockouts you'll ever see, especially in women's MMA. Talia Santos comes in with a 19-1 record in this fight. But understand that Talia Santos was fighting very, very below average competition before she made it to the UFC. So I'm not really that sold on this 19-1 record. Look at the resumes of these fighters that she's defeating. 1-0, 0-1, 0-1, 1-3-1, 0-1. Fighters making their MMA, their professional debuts here. If you want to start talking about legit fights, it's all the way up into the Dana White's Contender Series fight, which she was able to win a decision. Then she loses a split decision fight to Mara Borella, a girl that is not an average fighter, to say the least. That was a close fight. And then she had her 4 victories against Molly McCann, Jillian Robertson, Roxanne Modafferi, and then the Joanne Wood fight in her last fight where she did get that early finish. Listen, Talia Santos is a very physically strong fighter. She has a nice frame for the division. She carries some power. If she's able to land a big shot, she can definitely hurt her opponent. But Valentina Shevchenko is so sound with her technical defense. I don't expect her to be there to be hit. I expect her footwork to just be running circles around Talia Santos. She should be lighting up Santos, chewing the legs up with the leg kicks in the clinch, ripping knees up the middle. And you guys know I'm all over Shevchenko here. Shevchenko right now, she is grooving. She's strolling right into the prime of her career, and expect to see some finishes starting to string forward from her. I'm telling you, because the thing is, she's fighting these women that are just not on her level. Because I don't believe there's many women that are on her level, point period. So it's really tough for the UFC to even find worthy opponents to fight for the belt right now. You know, a lot of people would say that Talia Santos is not deserving of a title shot here. You know, this is a shallow division, and she's jumping up to this spot right now. And, you know, the bullet might really be able to make her pay for getting this opportunity a little bit too early. I wouldn't be surprised if we see her rip the body up and really hurt Santos. I'm all over the pick of Shevchenko here. You're going to see a very high line next to Shevchenko's name. Of course, she's a minus 750. I say she gets the job done. I'm so high on her ability. I think that she wins comfortably here. And I think you'll see that Santos was just not ready for this opportunity. I think Santos can give a lot of women trouble in the division, but she's not ready for this opportunity against the greatest women's mixed martial artist of all time in a division that's so shallow. Valentina Shevchenko needs to win this fight, and she needs to bump up in weight and start getting a rematch with Amanda Nunes or fighting the Venezuelan vixen Juliana Pena. You know, we need to see big time fights like that. I'm tired of seeing Shevchenko just run through this division. Enough's enough. Let her put her stamp as the greatest MMA fighter. Let her get that rematch. Let her fight the big names in the game. That's what I want to see. All right, so that's how I feel about that, and I'm all over Valentina Shevchenko. But I mean, if the line's going to hit the minus thousands range, it's going to be a 4-digit number next to her name, and you're not really going to make anything on it. I don't necessarily recommend you target it. You could if you want. I think she gets the job done, but there's no real value there. You had to be on this line early. Try to grab her around the minus 500-600 range, and it's too late for that. So just sit back and enjoy the performance that she puts out there. It's main event time. Glover Teixeira. Again, now my nickname for Glover is the Vampire. The way that he's aging. Taking on Jiří Procházka, one of the most entertaining fighters to burst on the UFC scene in a long time. Jiří Procházka getting a title shot in almost record fashion as far as from making his UFC debut to fighting for the gold. He's out there at the top. I believe he's had now what? So since he's made his UFC debut, he's only had 2 fights against Volkan Ozdemir and Dominic Reyes, and he's getting a title shot. Now, if you're wondering why that's the case, first off, the performances that he puts on are just so fan-friendly. It's obviously the UFC loves fighters that put on that type of fighting style. But understand that before he made his UFC debut, he's been fighting very high-level talent over in the Ryzen scene, and he's a very, very proven fighter. Victories over CB Dalloway, King Mo, Brandon Halsey, ex-Bellator fighter, a tough fighter. Bruno Capolazoa, having trouble with the last name here, but you guys all know Bruno. Bruno, I believe he's the PFL champion, one of the more devastating strikers in the division, period. I don't care if it's Bellator, UFC, PFL. Bruno is an absolute stud, and Jiří went out there and finished him. Okay, that's a big, big victory right there. A couple other recognizable names, Vadim Nemkov, Satoshi Ishii. I mean, if Darko Stojic, I mean, these are really reputable names, whether you recognize them or not. Maybe not so much towards the beginning, but he's been battle tested. All right. So the UFC gave him the quick path, but of course it's mostly based on the fact he brings the fight. And I think he's deserving. Now, Glover Teixeira, how has he been able to do what he's been doing recently? It's crazy. How has the guy got better and better and better? How has his chin looked better than ever as he creeps up into the 40s? I think he's always had a solid chin. I know that we saw him get knocked out against Anthony Johnson. I know we saw him get knocked out against Alexander Gustafsson, but overall, he's been able to eat shots. He's just an absolute pitbull. And he has very, very underrated and crisp boxing. So people all want to talk about the grappling that he possesses as of recently, which is definitely the main threat. But his boxing is very, very tight. And it's going to give a lot of fighters problems moving forward still, because people are so worried about the takedown and getting exploited down with the grappling. As he moves forward, he's landing uppercuts and nice hooks on you all day. Now, Jiří Procházka is going to be a lot more, much more wild fighter. He's going to be throwing these wild strikes. But things that Jiří has going for him right now is the fact that Jiří is drinking beers just weeks before his title fight. The guy doesn't give a fook. You know what I'm saying? What's up with that, though? Putting a pint back and making the pint look like a little 8-ouncer. But in all seriousness, I'm sure he just threw one beer back. He probably was deserving of it for the training he put in. The guy looks to be in phenomenal shape. Things he has going for him right now is the fact that he has his youth going for him. His confidence is going for him. He's not even in his 30s yet. He's an inch taller with a 4-inch reach advantage. He really needs to land from the outside, has to use that wild movement to kind of set Glover up. Don't be shocked. I know we talked about the chin. I do believe Glover has a solid chin, but do not be shocked, obviously, if Jiří gets the finish on the feet. I could see him landing some type of wild shot. But first and foremost, he has to stuff the takedowns, and he has to prove he can keep this fight from going down to the mat, where we have seen him have trouble at times. But he has continuously worked up to his feet and has never given up. It's a 5-round fight. If he gets taken down, even if he can just survive the onslaught, start the next round off, and eventually have some success stuff in the takedowns, I think eventually he lands some big shots on Glover. And I'm going to be taking Jiří Procházka to win the fight here. Now, I'm not crazy about the betting line here. I definitely am not crazy about a -210 line next to Jiří's name. I think Glover is more than live here at dog odds. I'm almost tempted to pick Glover here, but something just tells me that the youth of Jiří and the confidence is going to start to play into effect. I think that Glover's been getting away with a lot of stuff, and I don't know if we can continuously see him go out there up in his 40s, almost hitting the mid-40s range, and just outshining these studs. And I have a feeling he gets hit with the big shot here. Jiří's footwork is very, very tricky, and it could give Glover some problems as Glover tries to move in and go for those takedowns. But there's real potential for Glover to get this fight down to the mat, consistently control the fight there, rain damage, work his way to a finish. Man, and I'm telling you right now, from a betting perspective, the value is on Glover Teixeira, okay? I'm slightly picking Jiří, but you're looking at a +166 line next to the champ's name. He has the grappling avenue to win the fight. I want to see how he looks going into the weigh-in. I might even swap my pickup leading up to my official picks posted on Instagram, MMA Fortune Teller _. You guys know I do my full card picks on Saturday, but I think Glover's more than live, and the line should be. I think the line should be at a pick'em. I think the line should be at a pick'em right now. So the value's on Glover, but my pick will be Jiří for right now for the moment. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap up UFC 275. Hopefully, this video was a premiere to you guys, and you guys are all in the live chat right now, and this worked out good. This is something that I was working on doing for a while. If it was not a premiere video, that's something that will be happening moving forward. Maybe I had some technical issues just as of now. If you're new to the channel, understand that you're going to be seeing some major growth with this channel. I have an entire studio that's in the workings, and it will be set up in the next couple weeks. And you're going to really see just a dope overall background and whatnot. And you're going to see the quality of the videos go up and up and up. And I want to do a lot more live content. You're going to see a lot of stuff coming at you guys in a new way. So just want to give you a heads up on that. And I apologize for the time that it's taking, but it's all coming. So whether you like it or not, big things coming here. All right, guys. I appreciate every single one of you. As you guys know, I like to leave you guys with a positive going out statement. And hopefully you guys are getting ready for your summer body, man. Start eating healthy. Take care of your body, man. Get in the gym a couple times a week or whatever you're doing. Drop down, hit some push-ups every day throughout the week. Do your sit-ups. Take care of yourself and get ready to get your summer body going, especially for all you single guys out there. You got to take care of yourself, man. You look good. You feel good. Life's good. All right. I love every single one of you guys. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in like usual. let's go make some money now. Let's make some money this upcoming weekend. There's definitely some spots for us to hit on. And let's sit back and enjoy this fight card. I'm excited for it. All right. I'm very, very excited for this upcoming fight card. All right, guys. On that note, you know how I like to sign out. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller.